Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Well, I'm excited for this podcast because we're back again, almost a year to the date that we were before, but we're here with Phil Kaplan, who put on I would say it was last year, it was a very unique program at the Eastport United Methodist Church in Eastport called The Burdens Men Carry, and it's coming back. And thank you very much for joining us today. And
thank you for having me.
To get the details out of the way, but the event is called Burdens Men Carry, and we're going to talk about that. But that's Sunday, February 15th, right after Valentine's Day, 2 p.m. to 4:30 at the Eastport United Methodist Church. And that's on Bay Ridge Avenue, right where it sort of meets Chesapeake, sort of behind the old PNC Bank, that little wedge-shaped white building that's right there across from the shopping center. And you, if I remember right, are a reformed lawyer who has taken on a role of advocacy to address mental health for men, which often is overlooked. Do I remember that correctly?
That is very accurate. I was a lawyer for over 7 years in the child welfare field and suffered a career-ending depression that resulted in me giving up the practice of law, and through those experiences got into mental health advocacy. Did a lot of volunteer work for NAMI, for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, as a public speaker and educator, and then ultimately found my way to start Burdens Men Carry, which is focused on male mental health advocacy. And so we are this year having our second annual male mental health panel discussion event.
I'm very excited, and I have been for quite some time, is that we've gotten past that's Aunt Martha, she's crazy, just lock her up, way of dealing with mental health. And mental health has really come out to the top of that conversation. People are no longer afraid to talk about it. I mean, there is still some stigma, if you will, that is attached to it, but it's certainly not what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or, even way back when I was a kid. And I think that, we often hear about, the stress that women go through, and I don't want to pinpoint and pick on women, but you typically don't hear about any kind of stress or mental conditions, mental illness, mental concerns that men have, because we're the Tarzans of the world, okay? I mean, we're supposed to be swinging from the vines and thumping our chests and going, Atlas lifted the world. I mean, it wasn't Athena, okay? So, we've got a lot more, I don't want to say we have a lot more, but people tend to glance over that.
Yes, that is also very true. And quite honestly, that is part of my ongoing frustration when it comes to mental health, the topic of mental health, and specifically dealing with the mental health stigma, the stigma of people talking about it. I agree. We have made excellent progress, I think, as a society in terms of being more open to talking about mental health, being honest about it. But I think that there absolutely has been a gender imbalance in who's more willing to talk about it and who feels safer in talking about these issues. When I was involved for many years with NAMI as a volunteer, as a speaker, there was a very huge and obvious imbalance in terms of the women who were willing, to their credit, to speak openly about having mental health issues, what they've experienced. And then the men. There were and have been and continue to be great men who are willing to open up about these issues. And certainly you'll hear from them on the panel at this event. But I think that as a society, we still very often give the message to men, you're not really supposed to open up and be vulnerable. You're supposed to be the strong one. You're supposed to hold it all together. And I think we still have a lot of work to do.
Well, at the risk of ticking off all the women that may be listening to this, but I mean, women are just a little bit more able to and willing to and known to just talk and gab with the, I mean, you hear the girls' weekends away or the coffee klatch night and everything, and everything goes on. I mean, I get into these arguments with people. It's like, oh, well, you women talk way more about personal stuff when you guys get together in a group than guys do. I mean, and you want to think that the guys are, oh yeah, we'll talk like dating or something like, oh yeah, did how was the date? We don't.
Yeah.
Typically,
Yes.
we're a lot more
Yeah.
quiet than women would probably give us credit for, I think.
It's, I sometimes in conversations about this, conversations I've had with people, I express this frustration that when it comes to talking about personal issues, men almost feel a lot of the times forced into one of two extremes. Either we're going to hold it all together and pretend like everything is fine.
Until it's not.
So that we're not talking about anything that's really bothering us or stressing us or making us angry or afraid or depressed. And we'll pretend that everything is fine until it really isn't. And then I think we've been conditioned as men. The only way we're going to get people to pay attention to us when we're really, really sad or angry or troubled is to be scary about it, is to lash out and be so kind of angry and disturbed.
Or
and
someone's
whatnot.
grabbing the kids and running out of the room.
Exactly. That because men have been unfortunately given a lot of these messages that unless people are scared of you, they're not going to take you seriously. They're not going to really care about your problems. That is exactly what burdens men carry. These panel discussions, the upcoming panel event aims to remedy. We want to give men the message. One, you don't need to hold it together and pretend everything is fine when it isn't. You are allowed to talk openly about your problems. You are allowed to talk about difficult emotions that you're having. You're allowed to talk about things you're angry about, sad about, afraid of. You're allowed to do that just as much as women are. And then, on the other hand, to also give the message that when you express those negative emotions, you don't need to make people afraid of you. You don't need to do it in a threatening way. You can do it in a peaceful way. No one's going to call you weak. If they do, they're flat out wrong, and you can safely ignore them, because by going the route of the middle path where you're opening up and you're saying, you as a man, and any man who is dealing with difficult feelings, whether it rises to the level of a mental health condition or not, when a man chooses to go that middle path and say, okay, I'm going to express what's on my mind and what's bothering me, and I'm not going to do it in an angry, aggressive, threatening way. I'm not going to turn into the psycho, into the dangerous guy that people are running from. But I'm not going to be quiet about it either. And I'm going to express it peacefully. I'm going to express my truth. To me, in my book, that man is a hero, because men like that are moving things forward, and they are moving past those horrible societal messages that tell man, no, you need to either be the totally strong one pretending everything is fine, or you need to completely lose it and have people running for cover
And
and
terrified.
terrified. Yeah.
I mean, it really kind of boils down to it. I mean, we live in an imperfect world filled with imperfect people. And there's really no difference between men and women and children. I mean, we're all imperfect. And I mean, that can be interpreted any number of different ways, from a religious standpoint, a physical standpoint, an emotional standpoint, but, or a combination of all of them. That's what it is. We are imperfect. And nobody is perfect, okay? And that perfect guy is the one that doesn't have the stress, that doesn't, and everything is just wonderful. I tend to like to think that I am fairly even keeled and whatnot, but I know the holidays roll around, And I just get stressed the heck out. And my girlfriend's always like, well, what is it? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I get into depression, but I just don't know what it is. I know I'm shorter. I get distracted a lot easier. I'm a little bit angrier. I think it's probably just because they're all compressed. I mean, we've got, there's a number of birthdays and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and everything else. And then there's the gifts and people coming and moving and all of these moving parts at one time. That's my guess. But then January rolls around, everything's okay. We come to the library and we talk to Phil. So it's all better. But you mentioned this panel a couple of different times. So you've got 3 people on the panel. And I know last year you were on there and there were 2 other guys, the same people?
Exactly the same people. I'll be speaking again along with fellow mental health advocate Ryan Williams and longtime therapist Lance David.
What's their background?
So Ryan is a very interesting guy. He has a background as a software engineer who also got more recently a PhD in social psychology. And he has, like me, been a very active NAMI speaker, volunteer, and presenter. He got into mental health advocacy, much like I did, based on his own personal experiences with mental health challenges, and has been very active in trying to get the message out that it's okay for people, for anyone, but particularly men, to open up and be honest about these issues. So that's a little bit about his background.
Okay.
Lance David, also very, very interesting backstory. He has practiced as a psychotherapist for over 20 years and is very open about the fact that he got to the profession partly based on his own experiences with depression and with other mental health issues, and really comes to his own professional experience and expertise from a very empathic and compassionate, human-centered perspective of really just respecting the individual, respecting the possibilities and just potentials of human beings at their best. And it's interesting, when we had the panel discussion, the first panel event last February of 2025, our inaugural event, I got to see Ryan and Lance and myself, but Ryan and Lance speak on the panel for the first time.
Interaction, sure.
Yes, and I was really, really impressed with how not only clear they were about their own experiences and their own levels of expertise, things that they've learned through their journeys and their education and professional training, but also the respect that they have, the very clear respect that they have for human beings and other men trying to deal with some of these really tough issues at their best. I was greatly impressed. And so I have full confidence that they're going to, we're all going to hopefully do
You were impressed last
job.
February when the event rolled around in February of 2025, and I did speak with 3 people that I know that went to it, and you weren't the only one that left that room impressed. They said this was perhaps one of the best things that they've attended all year. Perhaps not the most fun, probably not the most, but it definitely was. And the 3 people, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but they were 3 totally different types of people from my perception, none of which I would have thought this would have interested. Okay, these are people that, as I look and say, oh man, they got their shit together. Okay, but apparently not, which again goes to that whole imperfect world there. Who is this panel for? Okay, I mean, obviously men. But I imagine that women have a role to play here, families have a role to play here. I mean, who should attend this on February 15th?
Very good question. Anyone. And It's interesting. Last time when we had the panel event, I was also really heartened by how diverse the attendees were. There were a mix of men and women attending, a mix of age ranges, a mix of backgrounds. And yeah, I'm very glad to hear what you just said as far as the people that you talked to, the response. Certainly not surprised. And I give anyone credit for attending something like this because though I know that it's interesting, I think it's educational and important. I also think that it's not all fun, and sometimes it is very difficult to deal with these issues and to hear things said, very adult and sometimes personal and painful topics. So, to answer your question, I think that both men and women equally have a stake in this. I think that men and women, and really anyone who has some type of interest in the topic of male mental health, which I think conceivably is everyone, should attend. Even children and teenagers are welcome. The only caveat is that obviously adult topics will be explored. So parents and
Sure.
guardians should use their own best judgment in deciding whether something like this would be appropriate. But really, the event is for anyone.
And as it just sort of dawned on me, related but not totally. But one of the best things I've got to thank for this, and I did not make it last year, but as with anything that's frightening, and mental health is frightening to the person that has a condition or has a stress or whatever it may be, is that, and I mean, it sounds a little bit trite, but you're not alone. To be able to sit there and have somebody you have no idea stands up there and says, the kids are driving me freaking crazy. And to be able to sit there in the audience and go, yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
There's a lot of strength in numbers to realize. And again, that's that, you aren't alone. You're able to turn around and say, hey, this is a group effort. I mean, we all are going through similar things. It may be a little bit different here and there. I mean, okay, my great Aunt Martha may be driving me crazy. It may be my kids. It may be my dog. Whatever it may be. But, we're all, suffering, or we're all capable is not the right word, but to be able to have this type of a situation where we need to address it. What is the cure for this? I mean, obviously here we're opening it up, and I mean, I know there is no cure per se. I mean, it's like asking, so what's the cure for cancer? Because we don't have one. Opening up, I imagine, is huge. And discussing and having conversations, but therapy, medication. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do this. What do you, in your experience, have you found is, I guess, moves the needle?
That is the $64 billion question. And it's a great question. I would start by saying at the last panel event, we chose to go about it more generally in terms of exploring the topics of mental health and stigma in a more general kind of overview way. And that's how we approached it. And I think it went well. This year, we're going to get a little more specific. We are dealing more in a more focused way on the topics of difficult emotions. How do we deal with difficult emotions, whether they rise to the level of a mental health condition or not? How do we as men navigate some of the most difficult or painful emotions that we're experiencing? The reason that I wanted to be more specific is that I do think one of the key ways that we move the needle forward on all of these issues is by continuing to open up and speak honestly, to encourage public discussion, to encourage people, whether they are on panels, whether they are attendees, whether they are just people in the mental health advocacy world, or whether we're just creating space for a greater public dialogue and making it known in the larger community that people are talking about these things. I think that being visible with that, being open and active in how we choose to talk about this and be honest, I think that those things by themselves move society forward on these issues. And I think that's how, in the most fundamental way, we build a better world and we get people happier and less in emotional pain than they otherwise would be. Obviously, I don't have a cure. If I knew how to perfectly address mental health issues, I'd perfectly address my own, and I can't.
We all carry them. We all carry them. Walk me through the panel discussion again. I mean, step by step, I guess. I know last time that you offered the people that were there index cards to be able to write a question and to put it up there. Because again, this is something that, big macho man doesn't want to stand up and go, I cry at midnight because I'm so depressed over whatever it may be. Is that going to be happening again?
Yes, I'm glad that you brought that up. First of all, the panel event, the first 50 minutes of it, a little less than an hour, will be the panel speakers answering pre-selected questions, talking about various issues. We're going to have a 10-minute intermission. And then after that, we're going to have about 20 minutes of Q&A for the attendees to be able to ask us questions, whatever questions are on their minds. And they can either do it one of two ways. If they want, they can certainly ask. We're going to provide them a microphone. They can ask the question to us directly from the audience in front of everyone. That's totally fine. We encourage that. But if, for whatever reason, people are not comfortable asking a certain question out loud in front of everyone, we are also going to have a basket with index cards and a pen where people can write down questions. They can be anonymous, and we will look at those questions and answer them.
Now, I think it's important to also, so people understand, this is not medical advice. This is not, this is not a therapy session. This is more broad and general. So, I mean, don't, if you are having, some mental health issues, don't come into this expecting to have a cure when you leave at 4:30.
We would be the first to say our purpose is to encourage discussion, to encourage a more lively debate, to have a sharing of ideas. Obviously, our purpose is not to provide any kind of clinical advice. And obviously, we would always encourage people who are really struggling to seek out the advice of professionals. There's one brief thing I also want to add. So the other thing that we're doing that's new this year that we didn't do last year is after the Q&A, and even after we have about 20 minutes following the Q&A, this is after the panel discussion, of general mingling as far as just, after we conclude the panel, we are, for anyone who's interested, we're going to offer a roundtable discussion as the last part of this event, where we will invite the attendees to offer some personal opinions, their own personal opinions on some of these topics. We want to make it very clear. Our purpose is not just to talk at people. We really want to engage in a discussion. We value the opinions of the people who are coming to see us. We want to hear from people. We want them to be an active part of the discussion. So there will be an opportunity in the roundtable discussion following the panel event for the attendees to offer their own opinions on some of these issues, if they want.
Awesome. What's the cost to attend?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, unlike last year when we had the advanced registration, we're also doing that a little bit differently. We are not having any advanced registration required. People will see on the website, this is a free event open to the public, no advanced registration required, just show up.
And the website is burdensmencarry.com.
Correct.
And I think we really need to shout out Eastport United Methodist Church for doing this.
Yes.
Churches, much like the library that we're sitting in, are really community centers, despite the fact that they're called libraries and churches and synagogues. But
Yes.
they really are a place to build community. And I really think that, that's a great thing that the church has stepped up to host this.
I absolutely agree. In fact, to say a few words about Eastport United Methodist Church, we are the first church to do something like this, to have something like this. And these types of events are something that EUMC specifically takes a great deal of pride and pleasure in hosting, many times for free. And that's why I would also encourage anyone who wishes to donate to EUMC can do that through their website. If anyone wants to make a contribution, because Eastport United Methodist Church, even among other churches, believes very strongly in actively serving the community, in using their space for events that in some way enhance the community. Eastport United Methodist Church actually served as a venue for a recent jazz concert, the
That's right.
Annapolis Jazz and Roots Festival back in November. And it has a very active food pantry. It has a number of other events, which I couldn't even begin to name. So yes, mad props to EUMC for hosting this. They have been extremely supportive. I know our pastor, Chris Broadwell, has consistently been very supportive about the Burdens Men Carry mission, about male mental health advocacy. And I'm really happy that EUMC has provided their space for this.
That's awesome. As you talk with your panelists and as you've gone through your experience, what do you find are the biggest stressors? And I'm going to say that a lot of mental health conditions are caused by stress and stressors, whether it be, work, money, and, relationship, family, and everything else. What are the biggest stressors or the biggest contributors to a mental health condition? Is there one?
That is an excellent question. I will only speak for myself. I know that the two that have really been struggle for me, and I think have really contributed to a lot of my despair in the past, have been frustrations regarding job, being a lawyer, specifically dealing with an unfriendly job market and feeling like, what was the point of becoming prospects are so poor, or having general frustrations with work, with parts of being a lawyer. I think that type of issue, if I may speak generally, is something that a lot of people, and certainly a lot of men, probably deal with. And it is very, very difficult. That's one of two main issues. One being job stressors and just things that are very difficult to deal with on that front. The other that I've really found enraging is the dating culture. I think I said it last time during this podcast. I mentioned it on the panel when I spoke last February. I'll probably do it again. The dating culture, when I was experiencing in my early 20s, trying to date as a law student living in Pittsburgh, when I was newly single after a long-term relationship in my early 30s, and trying to date as a lawyer living in Towson, Maryland, I could not believe how difficult it is, and specifically how difficult it is for guys, for men, who get all of these contradictory messages about you're supposed to make the first move and you're supposed to make the approach and have all this confidence, but don't you dare do it this way, and don't do it that way, and don't do it the other way, don't do it in this context, and don't hit on a girl here because she doesn't want that, and don't be a creep, and this is inappropriate. And we act like these messages issues are something that any man is supposed to be able to figure out. And I said this on the panel, I'll say it now. I truly don't believe the most socially intelligent man can possibly figure it out. And I think that that frustration with the dating culture, being a single man trying to date, I think that that hugely contributes to not only a lot of loneliness, but a lot of stress and a lot of just real emotional unpleasantness.
Well, that makes sense. Do you have any ideas? I mean, if you guys start to wrap up, because I know the police are going to come here and bounce us out in about 10 minutes from the library. I know how they are here. Do you have any idea of what percentage of men, is there a statistic out there that have some sort of a mental health challenge or a condition?
Not specifically. I know that the suicide rate for men has been consistently substantially higher than that for women. But I could not say as far as statistics for
Okay.
men. I do know that from the last time I checked, the overall statistic for Americans suffering some kind of mental health condition in the last year
I
is
don't know that I want to hear this.
1 in 5.
Wow.
I
Okay.
believe that's the NAMI statistic,
So that's 20%.
something like that. Yes.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You know, I mean, if I'm walking out of this library, okay, and I hit my head on the door and my head starts to bleed, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm going to get stitches. If I trip on the curb on my way out to the doctor and break my arm, I'm going to go to the doctor and get a cast. I'm going to figure out what it is. You know, I just don't understand why when our head hurts, and I'm not talking about a headache, but when something in our brain is misfiring, is not computing. I mean, it sound like that robot on, I'll show you my age, but, you know, Lost in Space, warning, you know, something does not compute. That we're so hesitant to go get that help, to go to a doctor to do it. And I remember there was an Ignite talk a couple years ago, and they were talking about, it was mostly directed toward cancer. And cancer is very prevalent in African American men, much more so than white African American, than white men. Again, to mental health, they all hold it in, except in the barbershop.
Interesting.
They said African American men will go into a barbershop and let it all hang out. And what they were doing is that they were putting in instructional literature, screening tests, where to get free screenings and for different cancers and colon cancers and everything else, or prostate cancers and everything else in the barbershops. And it was showing them someplace in South Carolina that they did this test, and it actually really seemed to help. It's not unique to mental health, is I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, as men, we don't need to shoulder the burdens of the planet.
That's a great point. And I think, you know, it's interesting. One of the things that cancer really has in common with mental health issues is that not only is it very scary, but it highlights a very deep vulnerability. We as men often want to think of ourselves as strong, powerful achievers, and
Cancer don't care about that, nor does mental health.
And as soon as you get a serious health condition where your overall ability to get through the day is affected, or you're facing really serious pain or discomfort, all of that sense of strength goes out the window. And you're left with, I'm just a very small, powerless human being. And it is frightening. And I think that's why we often try to avoid talking about it. But yeah, as with barbershops or in whatever manner, we need to find a way to be able to talk about these things openly.
Yeah, agreed. Sunday, February 15th, 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., no cost again.
Correct.
And this is at the Eastport United Methodist Church, again, the corner of Bay Ridge Avenue and Chesapeake Avenue by the old PNC building. burdensmencarry.com will give you some more information on the program. Again, there's no registration necessary. Walk on up. Also, for if you feel that you don't have any kind of challenges or conditions or burdens that you feel that you're carrying, probably be a good idea just to go anyhow, to help you maybe identify some of the burdens that some of your friends or your relatives or your neighbors that may be carrying, for you may be able to help them And because, helping each other is all about being in a community. And that's, what Eastport United Methodist Church and what we're all trying to do here. And we just need to be a healthier, happier, and more sane sometime
Absolutely.
community.
Yes. And the only other thing I would mention is that obviously for anyone who wants to learn more or see specifically, the website again is burdensmencarry.com. And if for whatever reason that website doesn't answer all the questions you have about this upcoming event, feel free to email me directly to ask any questions that you might have. I put my email on the website under the frequently asked questions, under the very last one. What if I have any other questions about this event? My personal email is pgk1979@hotmail.com.
So, Hotmail holdout.
I have a Hotmail holdout. Yes, indeed. I have a flip phone too. So, but feel free to email me if you have any questions, anything that you're wondering about as far as the event and you want some kind of answer to. I'm open to answering any questions.
Fantastic. Put that date on your calendar, Sunday, the 15th of February, 2 to 4:30. It'll be 2.5 hours well spent for men, for women, for families. Let's talk about it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.